And I'm Linda Zayas Palmer.
And this is Arcane Mark.
Or is it?
It might be an illusion. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this illusory broadcast of Arcane Mark. If you want to disbelieve the illusion, you can hit the thumbs up to disbelieve by interacting with it. Or subscribe or do anything else that you want to do to see whether the illusion was real or not.
Leaving a comment should help too.
Yes, if you try to talk to an illusion and it responds to you, you might be able to tell that it was fake. So, on today's episode, we're talking about illusion magic. We're going to take some specific looks at illusion magic in Pathfinder 2nd Edition as a case study of illusion magic for rules-heavy systems as a whole. But some of the philosophical discussions that we're going to have here that are sort of the bigger part of the episode will be useful even if you're running Dungeons & Dragons, an earlier edition of Pathfinder, Starfinder, or really any other game where you have to really adjudicate the illusions in a really rules-heavy manner. There are even some non-D&D likes that can have effects with illusions in it. For instance, if you're playing like Mage, there are like certain spells in like the Mind Sphere could create illusions, and then you can use other sphere the illusions, other aspects to themselves. So this is not just an issue for D&D and its sort of descendants, but also many other tabletop RPGs. It's just a fact that when you have a magic spell that blows things up with fire, that's something that usually, especially if the system says how much it hurts that you got blown up by fire, that different players and GMs can come to a consensus about what it meant to have been blown up by the fire.
But if you're hit by illusory fire, do you take damage? Does it depend if you believe it or not? Does it happen if you believe it but go away retroactively if you realize it was fake all along?
There's a lot to think about. And honestly, being blown up by an illusory fire tends to, in a lot of these systems, be one of the easier ones to adjudicate, because of the fact that a lot of these illusions say whether they're going to deal damage or not. A lot of these games, damage is something that they're good at expressing.
Yeah, it'll say, okay, well, if you believe that the illusion's there, then you take damage, and if you don't believe it's there, then you don't.
Or you take less, or whatever the case may be, right? However, there are many side cases with a lot of illusion spells where it's not so clear-cut as whether you take damage or whether you don't take damage. For instance, what if you use a pretty basic low-level illusion effect in Pathfinder or D&D to try to box the enemy in and be like, they seem to believe that they are in an illusion of being in like an adamantine like cage that is completely covers them up in all directions and they're trapped inside of it. So in order to adjudicate those kind of effects, you could go on a case-by-case basis through the spells, some of which have a lot of sentences, and then look through the definition of what is an illusion, the definition of disbelieving, and do like a very legal reading on those descriptions. And a lot of these games try their best to give you guidance in those rules for how to make a fair ruling on the illusion.
But fundamentally, a lot of illusion spells are going to be like, oh, you can just make a wide variety of things, whatever you can imagine. And so they're fundamentally going to be prone to corner cases.
Yes. And so if you don't come at it from a top-down approach where you think about what is your philosophy on illusions, what do you think that they are for, what should they do, you might wind up making a decision about illusions that either makes them useless or ridiculously overpowered. And you might even find that the line between those two is razor thin. So we want to talk about how you can sort of look at the philosophy of illusion magic. What is it for? What is it trying to do? And use that to try to make all sorts of adjudications on an illusion. So let's take Pathfinder 2, for example. Pathfinder 2 is a system that has 3 actions that you can spend on your turn. And there are a variety of different spells and effects in the game, some of which may directly take away actions from your enemy depending on their saving throw or the result of some other check that is made. Some of them even, especially at higher levels, or if it costs a huge number of actions to set them up, might like create some kind of a wall that is guaranteed, assuming that you place the wall correctly, to take at least some number of actions to bash it down.
Mm-hmm.
Although, to be fair, while it's still up, not only does it protect your party from the enemy on the other side, it might mean the enemy is also protected from your party until they bash it down as well. And that can be fine if you're separating half the enemies on one side from the ones on the other. We've had a whole episode on battlefield control that you can check out on the channel if you want to see those tactics. But why I'm talking about all this is think about your illusion spells. Think about what level they are compared to spells that put up actual walls that are in between the party and other things. Think about them compared to spells that literally take away actions from the enemy, and now they just have fewer actions left.
So, for example, if you were to say, well, this wall is an illusion, and anyone who knows that this wall is fake and disbelieves it, like all of my allies can see through it, but the enemies can't see through the wall, and so they can't see us at all.
They can't see through, and they can't go through until they disbelieve against the wall's difficulty class, which they will only be able to do if they try to bash down the wall some number of times.
Or spend actions directly interacting with it to try to figure things out.
Because in Pathfinder 2, the general rule on illusions is if you've spent at least one action interacting with it in some way, or you've otherwise like seen an interaction with the illusion that is directly potentially showing you that it's an illusion, that's when you get a chance to disbelieve. It's usually a perception check in Pathfinder, whereas it can often be some kind of a saving throw in D&D, whether
like
you're talking about a wisdom saving throw or an intelligence or whatever you're going through in that situation, right? So the point of it is, if you have a wall that is completely boxing around the enemy, and you say, like it's 30 layers thick, and so
it's a maze that they think they have to navigate.
It's a maze they think they have to navigate because that's technically it fits within the area of where this spell could be. That's all well and good, but once they spend one action to interact with it, they automatically get a chance to disbelieve. And furthermore, you might want to think about whether or not they get a chance to disbelieve if your allies keep shooting arrows visibly through the wall that are just clearly just coming out of the wall constantly. Because also with Wall of Stone, a much higher level spell, there would not be a chance for your allies to be shooting through that wall.
So it would be natural, for example, every time one of those attacks is coming through the wall and warping reality in a way that doesn't make sense, for them to be like, wait a minute.
So you want to think about what this means, and think about it not just from the perspective of the players casting the illusion against the enemies, but you need to think about this from the perspective of the enemies casting illusion against the players. Here's 2 reasons why that can be even more important. Number 1, when the enemies are casting illusion against the players, it can be hard to get across the illusion. You're the GM, you're the person who is meant to be telling the players what they see, what they hear, what they experience in the world around them.
So a lot of times, the players are going to assume, the GM is giving me an honest description of exactly what's real in the game world. But if you're portraying an illusory situation, you have to be careful with how you describe it so that the players can have a grasp on it and then be able to start to piece out, wait a minute, this seems a little bit odd. Something doesn't quite add up here. Let me try to think about what's going on, as opposed to just getting confused and then being like, well, I guess I didn't hear them right.
Yes, so your player could wind up feeling lied to or confused, depending on how you portray illusions as the GM. You need to be very careful about both how you portray them and just also how you're describing everything when an illusion's around. On the other hand, you don't want it to be an obvious Chekhov's gun, being like, wow, the GM just got 10 times more specific about the description around here. There's probably an illusion somewhere in the area. So you need to be careful about that. But the second thing to think about, not even from the perspective of description, is that if you try to enforce illusions as being as completely debilitating as some players want their illusions to be, those same players sometimes, or other players, will get very fussy about being told that they can't do anything else about the illusion. Like, if there's a giant wall that's being created clearly way before any spellcaster could have cast Wall of Stone, and, like, very low levels, and one of the players is like, that seems like that's not actually Wall of Stone, right? And wait, they're shooting arrows through the wall at us. Like, okay, I walk through the wall, and you're like, well, you have not disbelieved the wall. You will need to interact with the wall and then roll to see if you disbelieve. And then, okay, fine, I'll try to walk through it. Did I disbelieve? No. And they're like, well, okay, well, but then did I walk through it, though? Because it was actually an illusion, right? So maybe I walked through it.
But instead you could be like, okay, you can try to walk through the wall. If it's an illusion like you think, then you'll walk straight through to the other side. Otherwise, you'll run into it.
So you could say that. And then they'd be like, but wait, but I just took a running start and tried to move all the way through it. And you're going to wind up getting arguments with you. I've literally seen those arguments of like, I know that my character wasn't sure whether it was an illusion or not. And you know what? She was fine with slamming into it if it was a wall. But I had momentum and this wall does not exist. So what is stopping me from going through? I've seen people who've asked that. Now, the technical rules of illusions in Pathfinder 2 would say that if you didn't disbelieve it, then you don't know that it's an illusion. So, but they don't say that the wall actually has mass or force or can actually stop you from going through if you were literally running.
So to your senses, it looks like a wall, but you might decide for environmental reasons, or logic reasons, hey, I don't think this wall is actually here.
And even if the character still thought it was a wall, the question is, did they get to the other side?
Yeah.
And if you say still no, which, you know what? We're very much in interpretation range here, by the way. Anything in that whole range is valid. I'm trying to say, our message is, think about what you're doing when you make any of these rulings and how strong it would be and what you want in the game. And whether it would frustrate your players if it was being enforced in the same way for them when you enforce it for NPCs. Because, on the other hand, if they can just walk right through whether or not they disbelieve, what is the illusion even doing? Right? But I'm going to keep going. Let's say that you said, well, no, yeah, they said they got a running start, but they didn't disbelieve it, so they stopped. Like, their brain told them they had to stop. But suppose they had an ability that their character has, and I'm gonna make it up. This doesn't actually exist. That's called Minotaur Bull Rush, and here's how it works. It's a single action, and once you start it, then you have to choose a direction. You must stride 20 feet more than your normal movement speed in that direction in a straight line. Once you've started, you can't stop, even if you find out that there's a pit or a creature that can hit you with a reactive strike along the way or some other dangerous thing, because you've already begun the bull rush and it's too late. So I think that, like, pretty clearly, almost any GM would rule that if somebody tried to use that into a wall that they thought was an illusion, that they would wind up on the other side of it.
Or like a character there was an enemy that threw the PC or
through the wall,
or like a trap that pushed them through the wall, or they slid down a cliff through the wall, or any number of other things.
Or hey, a lot of those, some of those rely on someone who maybe have known about the illusion or whatever, but suppose that your ally actually shoves you through the wall. Both of you have not disbelieved the illusion, by the way. Right? But there's nothing about shove that says that they can stop if you, as the person shoving them, thinks there's not a wall. It does say that what to happen if you actually do hit a wall, but you didn't hit one. So there's at least some instances, right, where there's a type of action you could take that would almost definitely get you through that wall. Such as shove.
And there also could be circumstances like, let's say, for example, the enemy cast an illusion spell, and you successfully identified, hey, a wall appeared after they cast this illusion spell.
Now, you would probably rule that whatever check you were using to identify it was at the very least a chance to have interacted with it. So if you had a reactive way to identify it, then that would probably let you interact with it just off that reaction, at least have a chance. But suppose you keep failing to disbelieve. At that point, it's difficult to adjudicate it in a way that can sort of maintain the fact that the illusion is doing something while also making sense if you're trying to stop them from going through. In reality, it would be more that they truly believe it's not an illusion, and so all of these attempts to try to shove yourself through it might be considered to be metagaming if you think about it that way. That's like the most you could say for it.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, if arrows keep coming through it, it'd be like,
or
look,
like
I don't think this is an illusion either, but we might as well try to shove you through because that's our only chance.
Or but I also think that, if the person at least for me, if the person successfully identified, they just cast illusory wall, the spell about making illusory walls, and suddenly then a wall appeared, and then that sure looks like a real wall, but they just cast illusory wall, so I'm pretty sure that's an illusory wall.
Yes,
that's an illusion.
And so you have to
decide what is metagaming here too.
You also have to take into account, basically, whether or not the game system has a rule that says if you have something that beyond a doubt indicates that the effect is definitely an illusion, then you automatically disbelieve the illusion. So, for example, Pathfinder 1 did have that rule, and it was a very important one because of the fact that it actually prevented the spellcaster from there were weird situations where it would be advantageous to not disbelieve your own illusion, but you couldn't because of the fact that you knew.
Oh yeah, the thing about walking on a wall, on a bridge that you made that was an illusory bridge, and you could walk on it, but only if you believed that it was real.
Yes. So therefore, you could Wile E. Coyote the enemies if they disbelieved it correctly that it was an illusion, but you told your allies, just believe this bridge. I know it's really easy to disbelieve. Just believe it and we can walk across, but you can't because while they don't know for sure what you cast, you did know for sure that you had cast an illusion, and so you were incapable of doing that. It was very strange. But basically, the situation in Pathfinder 2 is disbelieving illusion says sometimes illusions allow an affected creature a chance to disbelieve the spell, which lets the creature effectively ignore the spell if it succeeds in doing so. This usually happens when a creature seeks or otherwise spends actions to engage with the illusion, comparing the result of its perception check or another saving throw at the GM's discretion to the caster's spell DC. Mental illusions typically provide rules in the spell's description for disbelieving. If the illusion is visual and a creature interacts with the illusion in a way that would prove it is not what it seems, the creature might know that an illusion is present. Still can't ignore the illusion without successfully disbelieving. For example, if a creature character is pushed through the illusion of a door, they will know the door is an illusion. They still can't see through it. Disbelieving an illusion makes it and those things it blocks seem hazy and indistinct. So even in the case where a visual illusion is disbelieved, it may at the GM's discretion block vision enough to make those on the other side concealed. So this is a good example. If you were pushed through the door in Pathfinder 2, it states, you automatically know it is an illusion. Presumably, you can't see through it as an example, but presumably you can walk through it. It doesn't say that you can't in the rules for illusion.
Yeah.
So that also, if you think about it, highly indicates that normally you could probably walk through an illusion that you haven't disbelieved successfully, but still not see through it. On the other hand, some people, and you might be in this group, so think about this when you're ruling it, might say, well, that makes the illusion too weak of an obstacle, because if I create this illusion of what seems to be an obstacle, and the GM or the PCs are just always just walking through it, and
then sure, it blocks line of sight to start with.
But that's all it did.
Yeah.
And the answer could be, well, that's fine, though, because honestly, when you compare it to like a mist spell or like a fog creation spell, some of these illusion spells are lower rank of magic than that. So, and they block more sight than those other spells to begin with. So maybe that's enough for those illusions to do. So basically, you have to come up with a decision of how much you think the illusion should have an effect compared to the opportunity cost. And be upfront with the illusionist in your party about this. And you may want to include everyone in the party, because be upfront to be like, look, this is how I'm also going to be ruling illusions the enemies are using on you. So keep this in mind. Let's make a decision together.
Yeah, and it's also because it'll impact the way that the PCs are going to interact with the spells that the illusionist casts.
That's right.
You know, are you going to say that the party knows that the illusionist cast the spell and therefore, you know, maybe, and you know, the example there would suggest, okay, you know, the party knows the illusionist MO is to create it, or the illusionist even literally said, hey guys, I'm going to make an illusory door here. They're still going to need to interact with it to disbelieve it before they can see through it, but they'll know, okay, that looks, smells, sounds, etc. like a door, but I know that the illusionist just made it.
And I know I can walk through it.
And I know I can walk through it.
If that's how you're ruling it.
Yeah.
I've seen GMs who ruled that you can't go through until you disbelieve it in the past. The only thing that Pathfinder specifically says is you definitely can't see through, or they use the word ignore. You can't just completely ignore it, but it doesn't say that you like defy physics or that you can't go through it or other things like that.
Or that like if there was an illusory staircase that you could climb it.
Right. Exactly. If you want to actually have one of those miming walls that blocks things, you need the bard mime ability that House of Illusory Walls or something like that actually creates real invisible panels based on your mime skill.
Yeah. Because I guess that's a tricky thing about the adjudication, where it's like, well, you can't go through the wall if you believe that it's there. You know, can you climb the ramp if you believe that it's there? Even though it's not actually there?
Well, the House of Illusory Walls bard thing is actually like a wall. So
yeah,
you can
so
actually
you can do that, but I'm saying, like, in general.
Pathfinder 1 had some wild and outrageous things with that. Pathfinder 2 doesn't as much. 5e also doesn't have as many of the weird shadow conjuration corner cases. 3.5 D&D did.
Yeah.
So,
like, for me personally, the thought, I tend to think of it more as, like, it's tricking all of your senses. And so, like, if you have a reason from the environment to think, hey, I don't think this is real, then it makes sense to try to deal with it that way. And it's not gonna, like, you know, an illusory staircase is not gonna hold your weight because it's not real, unless the spell, like, specifically says otherwise, that it's gonna do other stuff.
Absolutely.
And then that way, like, at least for me, that way you're not gonna run into contradictions of it doing other things. But yeah, definitely if people are just like, every time that I see a wall, you know, I'm only gonna walk through it if I think, if I, out of, for a metagame reason, think it's illusion, then I might be like, really? But, like...
Yeah, like, a lot of times what I would do is be like, all right, you see a wall. They'd be like, all right, I'm going to walk through it. Or like, you start walking and you feel a wall. Are you going to try to keep walking?
Yeah, walking, yes.
Yes. Yeah, okay. As you keep walking, you continue feeling a wall, but somehow you then, like, kind of clip through it almost like a faulty video game.
Yeah.
Where someone managed to glitch through the wall, and then you wind up on the other side. But it still was a solid wall throughout this process. That might be what the experience is of getting through a wall that is...
You haven't disbelieved.
That you haven't disbelieved. And be like, did I disbelieve this wall? Because I just walked through it. And like, well, it may have been more like a glitch in reality. There may have been like a dimensional effect up on there.
Some kind of a weird portal thing going on.
Or someone cast like a pass wall effect so that you can get through this wall. But in any case, it seems to be a real wall. You just happen to have gotten through.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, okay, I think it might be an illusion. You're like, well, it could be. But as far as you can tell, it isn't. That's one way to do it. You don't have to adjudicate your illusions in exactly the same way. You need to find a way that works for everyone in your group, and they're okay, very importantly, with having done when enemies use illusions. Because I can tell you, illusionist PCs do sometimes get miffed when the NPCs are like, okay, I go through the wall, and like, did they disbelieve? And like, well, they started trying to go through, and it worked. But the players who are not illusionists get much more upset if you tell them that, oh yeah, well, sorry, you didn't disbelieve, you can't even try to go through that wall. Right? So, especially if you then have to ask them to roll and they fail disbelieving several times and lose most of their turn on it. Yeah. They'd be like, but I know this is an illusion. And it says in the rules, and they'll look at whatever it says, and it's vague, like all illusion rules are. And it probably does allow them to go through, but it might not. And so that's why having a discussion in advance and make sure it's one that everyone is happy with. Whether it happens to them or whether they're throwing it off. And if that means that you've chosen something that's like more fun for the players when illusions get thrown at them, but then the person who wanted to play an illusionist was like, that is not powerful enough or debilitating enough that it doesn't like completely ruin the enemy's turn every time for this first ranked spell. I don't want to play an illusionist. Then you can be like, all right, play something else if that's what your group wants. Whereas if other people in the group are like, I think it'll be funny if Bob plays an illusionist and does that, so I'm okay if we get wrecked by any other illusionist.
Yeah.
That's going to be fine. It's more worth it because they won't use it that many times, and Bob's going to use it
every time.
Every single round.
Yes.
And I just want to see that happening, where the enemies just get completely screwed up by Bob's illusions. I'm okay if we get screwed up by illusions. Like, maybe your group will think that. Now, it's possible they will think that at first, but then after Bob truly does do it every single round, does it 100 times, that they...
And they'll be like,
this is maybe the 99th time was okay, but the 100th time was too many.
Like, all right, Bob is automatically canceling an entire turn for enemies.
Or at least an action. If they roll well on it, maybe maybe that's all.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this is a microcosm of illusion magic, and just like many of the other problems and sort of challenges for GMing in this channel, the solution becomes communication, coming at things in advance, and making sure that everyone in the group is okay with your answer that will work for both the PCs and the NPCs. Because if you have that, then you're going to be fine. No matter how you rule it, even if you rule it ridiculously harshly against the people who have been thrown into the illusion, harshly for the illusionist, or somewhere in between. And this is a debate that if you're watching this and you're like, yeah, we just watched for 26 minutes on this, but we've never had problems with illusion. Why does this episode say that this is often a corner case and a rabbit hole? No one's ever argued about that, have they? You could just go online to any place where rules arguments are happening. Reddit, message boards, wherever. You will see. Just look up on any Pathfinder 2 thing, illusory object, and you will see people getting into furious battles about illusory object.
Yes.
Ones that they will never be able to reconcile because the groups or the individuals who are talking about it hold differing opinions. But your group will be able to reconcile it if you talk about it in advance. And as Math Guy Dave points out, it's possible that Pathfinder 2 will wind up making an illusionist class now that, like, the wizard has not stolen away every type of magic. I mentioned that, like, right when Remaster came out, that Necromancer and Illusionist are now possible classes.
Yeah.
And Necromancer is a class now. I was strongly suspecting that something like that could happen, because that's just what you can do if you don't have, like
the wizard
there's 8 very special kinds of magic, each of which are very different and unique. And Wizard is the master of all 8 of them.
Yes.
I'd be like, why did we do this?
Tradition.
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 There you go. So, basically, the way to adjudicate illusions, and the reason why this is for any tabletop RPG, not just your Pathfinder game, is that you adjudicate them by using game philosophy principles rather than by using your most legalistic reading of exactly what you think that the illusion text says. Because game designers do their best, and we do our best. And for Fireball, our best is pretty good, because we can tell you it does 6d6 fire damage, or whatever it does. But for illusions, our best is always going to be an approximation that's not going to cover everything that you need. And so a discussion and a agreement with your group is the only way to make illusions
compared to the things that other characters can do, and other characters of that level can do, and effects of that level can do, and take a look at what you're going to want to have as a consistent rule set for both your NPCs and your players.
That's right. So, with these basic principles and this basic tactic, you can handle whatever your illusion situation might be. And honestly, in Pathfinder 2, there's few things that are actually more thorny than that one first level illusory object spell that we gave as an example here. It's why I wanted to use it as a case study, it can be a good case study for Dungeons and Dragons as well.
Because a lot of the other spells will be like, well, if it's a creature, then it deals this much damage, then this is exactly what happens, and that sort of thing.
Or this one's a scene, and it goes and repeats, and it has these certain things happen, and it'd be
these characteristics and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So, that is basically how you should go about it for your group. So, please leave a comment if you have ideas about other situations with illusions that you'd like to hear about, or how your group solved it, if you solved it in a different way than one of the examples that we gave here. As we said at the beginning, to disbelieve this illusion, you can hit the thumbs up to like, you can subscribe, or even join if you want to support more illusions in the future. And we will have a vote for next Tuesday's episode of Arcane Mars. There's already a vote for 5, which is Eldamon Element.
Let's go ahead and give folks who've been watching us here XP.
We sure will. That's no illusion.
Any other opinions on what we should do next? Well, I suppose while they're voting, another thing I was just thinking about is illusions versus other effects that can create distortions that aren't illusions, like haunts and things like that.
Yeah. What about?
Oh, I mean that. Oh, sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Never mind.
I can think about a lot of things, but I actually don't know what I would say if, how would illusions go up against haunts?
Oh, I mean, in terms of, whether someone is going to think that it's a haunt or some other kind of effect versus an illusion. Or the way you might describe them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. For the descriptions of illusions vis-a-vis haunts. So, yeah, I mean, and honestly, a haunt, in essence, is evoking certain images that it may be even literally be using illusion magic for part of the haunt.
Yeah.
So,
because they actually feel pretty similar when I think about the ways that they're described, in terms of that they are things that shift your perception for something that isn't really physically there.
Haunts can sometimes become physically there, or make you feel that they're physically there enough to actually cause you significant harm. All right, so it looks like you could just put a 1 into the chat to vote for building a hazard here, a 2 for Arcade Mark's Save My Game Q&A, a 3 for GM Tools role-playing and running as a dragons, 4 for us playing a computer game, and a 5 for an Eldamon element. Right now we have literally only 1 vote, so if anybody else votes, you will either tie it up or lock it down. What if your PC is an illusion? If their PC is an illusion and then they hit the number and the enter key, then they can disbelieve potentially twice. Although their finger might go through and hit whatever's beneath the computer.
That's true.
All right. So yeah, it looks like literally only Math Guy Dave has voted.
An opinion today.
So therefore,
all right, Math Guy, you are deciding our next episode.
We're doing whatever Math Guy Dave wants,
which is Eldamon Element.
Eldamon Element.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you next Tuesday. Same Math Guy Dave channel. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.